The Galactic Bank was more than just a financial institution. It was a symbol of absolute security, a fortress of wealth that spanned multiple star systems. Embedded deep within the asteroid belt of the Zolothian system, its location was as inaccessible as it was impregnable. Built by the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, the bank was protected by cutting-edge security systems, layers of force fields, surveillance drones, and an AI that could predict and counter any potential threat. In its centuries-long history, not a single vault had ever been breached. Among the countless species in the galaxy, many had tried to break into the Galactic Bank, each failure only adding to its legend. The vault was said to be uncrackable, a place where the riches of entire civilizations were kept safe from even the most ambitious of thieves. But while other species saw an impenetrable fortress, one group of humans saw an irresistible challenge. Aboard a small, unassuming ship, 3 figures gathered around a holographic display of the Galactic Bank. They were the best at what they did, specialists whose names were whispered in criminal circles across the galaxy. John Cole, the strategist, was a man of unshakable composure. His mind worked like a finely tuned machine, always 5 steps ahead. He had planned and executed heists on planets where failure meant death, yet he had never lost a man or missed a target. Beside him stood Julia Quinn, a hacker with a reputation for being able to crack any code, no matter how complex. Her hands danced over a portable terminal, eyes scanning lines of code with the precision of a surgeon. She had spent years perfecting her craft, taking down the most secure systems for fun and profit. The third member of the team was Noah Vance, an infiltrator with unparalleled physical prowess. His athleticism and combat training made him the perfect candidate to navigate the physical defenses of the vault. Noah could slip into places unnoticed, moving with the grace of a shadow, and had an uncanny ability to improvise in tight situations. "We've all heard the stories," John began, his voice calm and measured. "But I don't believe in Unbreakable. There's always a way in, and there's always a way out. We just need to find it." Julia smirked, her fingers continuing to tap away at her terminal. "I've already mapped out most of their external defenses. They're good, but not perfect. I can get us past the perimeter, but we'll need to disable their AI system once inside. That's the real challenge." Noah leaned in, his eyes narrowed as he studied the hologram. "What about the guards? We can't assume they're just for show. These aren't your run-of-the-mill security forces." John nodded. "They're not. The guards are elite, trained to respond to any situation. But they're also predictable, and that's where we have the advantage. We've done the impossible before. This time will be no different." The plan was audacious, so audacious that it bordered on the insane. But that's what made it perfect. The bank's security was designed to counter brute force, overwhelming power, and obvious threats. It wasn't designed to handle the subtlety and precision of a well-executed human heist. "We'll move in stages," John continued. "Julia will breach the outer security grid, giving us a window to enter undetected. Once inside, Noah will navigate us through the physical defenses, while I coordinate our movements to avoid any encounters with the guards. The AI will be our biggest hurdle, but if Julia can disrupt its network for even a few minutes, we'll have enough time to reach the vault." Noah chuckled softly. "And if we don't?" John's expression remained stoic. "Then we adapt. That's what we do." As the holographic display glimmered off, the 3 thieves exchanged glances. There was no need for further discussion. They all knew what was at stake. This was more than just a heist, it was a statement. If they could pull this off, they would be remembered as the team that defied the impossible. But the Galactic Bank was unlike any other target they had faced. Its defenses were relentless, its security flawless, at least on the surface. But John, Julia, and Noah were the best humanity had to offer, and they had no intention of walking away empty-handed. John broke the silence. "We make our move in 2 days. Get everything ready. This needs to go perfectly." With a final nod, the team dispersed, each member retreating to prepare their gear and mentally brace for the task ahead. They had done their homework, analyzed every detail, and considered every contingency. But as always, the true test would come in the execution. As John watched his teammates leave, he couldn't help but feel a familiar rush of anticipation. This heist would either make them legends, or see them fall into obscurity. There was no middle ground. And that was exactly how they liked it. The Galactic Bank had never been robbed, but it had also never faced thieves like these. In 2 days, that would all change. 2 days later, the sleek, black ship that carried John, Julia, and Noah drifted silently toward the asteroid belt. Its hull was coated with advanced stealth technology, rendering it invisible to the prying eyes of the Galactic Bank's perimeter defenses. Inside, the atmosphere was tense but focused, each team member preparing for their role in the heist of the century. John stood at the helm, eyes fixed on the holographic display that detailed their approach. Every movement of the ship was calculated, every minute accounted for. The bank's outer defenses were the first hurdle in an intricate web of sensors, patrols, and automated turrets that had repelled every intruder for centuries. But John wasn't concerned with the history, he was focused on the now. "We're approaching the perimeter," John announced, his voice steady. "Julia, it's your show." Julia, sitting at her station, cracked her knuckles before her fingers began gliding over her terminal. She had spent the past 48 hours running simulations, fine-tuning the algorithms that would allow her to breach the bank's security grid. It was no simple task. The bank's AI was adaptive, designed to anticipate and counter any cyber intrusion. But Julia had a trick up her sleeve, a virus she'd crafted specifically for this job. "I'm in," she said after a moment, her eyes narrowing in concentration. "Initiating disruption protocols." The ship's sensors flickered as Julia deployed the virus. It moved through the bank's network like a ghost, masking the ship's presence while creating false readings on the security systems. The virus was designed to confuse, to make the bank's defenses chase phantoms, while the real threat slipped by unnoticed. John monitored the readings, watching as the perimeter defenses began to falter. Patrol drones veered off course, turrets shifted aimlessly, and the sensor grid blinked in and out of existence. The path ahead was clear, but only for a brief window. "Perfect," John muttered. "Noah, get ready." Noah, already suited up in sleek, black armor that absorbed light, stood at the ship's airlock. His heart pounded with the familiar adrenaline rush, but his mind was clear, focused. This was his element, the moment where all his training and experience came into play. The ship's hatch opened silently, revealing the cold, empty void of space beyond. Without hesitation, Noah launched himself into the darkness, his suit's thrusters propelling him toward the bank's outer wall. The asteroid belt provided natural cover, and with the security grid temporarily disabled, he was nothing more than another piece of debris to any passing sensors. As he approached the surface, Noah extended a hand, activating the magnetic clamps on his gloves and boots. He latched onto the wall, the surface smooth and unyielding beneath his touch. The bank's exterior was designed to be impregnable, but Noah had other ideas. Reaching into a pouch at his side, he retrieved a small device, a cutting tool that used concentrated energy beams to slice through even the toughest materials. With precise movements, Noah began cutting a circular entry point, careful to avoid triggering any internal alarms. The seconds ticked by, each one bringing him closer to discovery. Inside the ship, John and Julia monitored his progress. The clock was ticking, and the virus could only hold the defenses at bay for so long. "Noah, status?" John's voice crackled through the comms. "Almost through," Noah replied, his tone calm but focused. The last section of the wall gave way, and Noah carefully set it aside, revealing a dark corridor within. He slipped inside, immediately activating his suit's cloaking mechanism. The interior of the Galactic Bank was a labyrinth of corridors and security checkpoints, each one more formidable than the last. But Noah moved with confidence, his knowledge of the bank's layout guiding him through the maze. He approached the first security checkpoint, where a pair of alien guards stood watch. Their eyes were sharp, their postures rigid. These were no ordinary sentries. But Noah had prepared for this. From a compartment on his wrist, he extracted a small, spherical device, a sonic disruptor. With a flick of his wrist, he rolled it toward the guards. The device emitted a high-frequency pulse, inaudible to human ears but devastating to the guards. They crumpled to the ground, unconscious before they could react. Noah stepped over them, continuing deeper into the bank. John's voice crackled in his ear. "You're clear to the next checkpoint. Julia is working on disabling the internal sensors, but you need to move fast." "I'm on it," Noah replied, his voice barely above a whisper. He advanced through the bank, bypassing traps and disabling security systems with practiced ease. Each step brought him closer to the vault, but the further he went, the tighter the defenses became. It was as if the bank itself sensed the intrusion, its AI adapting to the growing threat. Noah reached the final security door, a massive, reinforced barrier that stood between him and the vault's inner sanctum. He could feel the tension mounting, the air thick with anticipation. But there was no room for doubt. With a deep breath, Noah began working on the door's locking mechanism. Time was running out, and the slightest mistake could mean the end of the mission. But Noah thrived under pressure, his fingers moving with precision and speed. Finally, the door hissed open, revealing the path to the vault. Noah stepped through, his heart racing with the thrill of success. But as he moved forward, a new sound echoed in his calm, an alarm, blaring through the corridors. "Julia!" John's voice cut through the noise. "What happened?" "The AI, it's adapting faster than I anticipated," Julia replied, her voice tinged with frustration. "I need more time." Noah didn't hesitate. "Then we make time." As the door sealed shut behind him, he knew there was no turning back. The heist was far from over, and the real challenge was just beginning. Noah stood before the vault door, the heart of the Galactic Bank's treasure trove just beyond. The alarm echoed through the corridors, a relentless reminder that their window of opportunity was closing. Sweat beaded on his forehead beneath his helmet, but his hands remained steady. This was the moment that would define their mission. "Vault door is locked down tight," Noah reported, assessing the massive barrier before him. It was composed of a material unknown to humanity, resistant to all but the most advanced technologies. "Julia, I need that AI neutralized." In the ship, Julia's fingers flew across her terminal, her eyes narrowed in concentration. The AI was fighting back, adapting to her intrusion with an intelligence that was both impressive and infuriating. But Julia wasn't about to back down. She had anticipated resistance, though not at this level. It was time to pull out her ace in the hole. "Deploying override protocol," Julia said, her voice laced with urgency. She initiated a sequence she reserved for the most critical moments, a complex code designed to overwhelm the AI with simultaneous attacks on multiple fronts. It was risky, but they had no other choice. As the code executed, the lights in the corridor flickered, and the alarm sputtered, momentarily losing its rhythm. "You've got a small window, Noah. The AI's distracted, but it won't last long." Noah wasted no time. He retrieved a small device from his utility belt, a molecular destabilizer, one of the most advanced tools in their arsenal. It was capable of breaking down the molecular bonds of the vault door's material, but it required precision and speed. He placed it against the door, activating the device, and watched as the metal began to dissolve, creating a passage just wide enough for him to slip through. Inside the vault, the air was cool and still, a complete contrast to the tension outside. Rows of shelves stretched out before him, each one laden with treasures beyond imagination. Precious gems, rare artifacts, and stacks of credit chips glittered in the dim light. But Noah's focus was on the central pedestal, where the true prize rested, a small, unassuming box, rumored to contain a data crystal with the key to untold power. He approached the pedestal cautiously, aware that this final obstacle was likely the most dangerous. The pedestal was surrounded by an energy field, invisible to the naked eye but detectable by his suit's sensors. Noah quickly analyzed the field's parameters, identifying a narrow frequency range where it could be disrupted without triggering an alarm. "Energy field detected," Noah reported. "Disrupting now." Back in the ship, John monitored the situation closely. He trusted Noah to handle the vault's defenses, but the AI's resurgence was becoming a serious concern. "Julia, how much longer can you keep the AI occupied?" "Not much longer," she admitted. "It's learning too quickly. I'm giving you everything I've got, but you need to hurry." Noah didn't need to be told twice. He calibrated his disruptor to the precise frequency and aimed it at the energy field. The field shimmered, then dissipated, leaving the pedestal unprotected. He carefully lifted the box, feeling the weight of it in his hands. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. This was at the culmination of their efforts, the prize that had driven them to attempt the impossible. But the moment was fleeting. The AI's alarm blared to life again, louder and more insistent. "We've overstayed our welcome," Noah muttered. "I'm on my way out." As he moved toward the exit, the vault's defenses roared back to life. The corridors ahead filled with automated turrets and security drones, all controlled by the AI, which was now fully aware of the breach. The bank was done playing defense. It was going on the offensive. John's voice crackled over the comms. "We've got company outside. Patrol ships are converging on our location." "Noah, you need to move!" Julia shouted, her voice filled with urgency. Noah sprinted down the corridor, his heart pounding as the turrets swiveled toward him. He zigzagged to avoid the first volley of laser fire, the beams scorching the walls where he'd just been. A drone whizzed past, and he barely managed to evade its scanning beam, knowing that getting tagged would mean immediate capture or worse. But Noah wasn't just running. As he moved, he deployed decoys, small, reflective devices that created holographic doubles of himself. The turrets and drones hesitated, momentarily confused by the sudden proliferation of targets. It was a trick he'd used before, but never under such dire circumstances. "I'm almost at the exit," Noah panted, his breath coming in sharp bursts. He could see the hole he'd cut earlier, now guarded by two more drones that had just arrived. He didn't slow down. Instead, he pulled out a compact EMP grenade from his belt and lobbed it toward the drones. The grenade detonated with a sharp crack, sending out an electromagnetic pulse that fried the drone's circuits. He reached the opening and threw himself through, just as the AI reactivated the vault's primary defenses. The hole he'd cut sealed itself shut with a screech of metal on metal, cutting off pursuit for now. Noah floated back toward the ship, the vault's prize securely in hand. "I'm out," he confirmed, his voice tinged with both exhaustion and exhilaration. John's relief was evident, even over the comms. "Get back here! We're leaving now." The heist wasn't over yet. They had what they came for, but now they had to escape the Galactic Bank's wrath, a task that would prove just as challenging as the break-in. The AI might have been outsmarted, but it wasn't defeated. And it wasn't about to let them go without a fight. As Noah re-entered the ship, the tension inside was palpable. The success of the heist now depended on their ability to escape the Galactic Bank's formidable forces. John's fingers flew across the controls, setting a course that would take them through the densest part of the asteroid belt. Their only chance was to lose the pursuing ships in the chaotic environment. "Strap in," John ordered, his voice steely. "It's going to get rough." Noah secured the vault's prize in a reinforced container before sliding into his seat. Julia was already at her station, her face lit by the glow of her screens as she monitored the bank's attempts to track them. The AI had recovered from Julia's attack, and it was throwing everything it had at them. Patrol ships, automated drones, and even long-range missiles were closing in on their position. "Enemy ships on R6, Julia reported, her voice tight with urgency. "They're gaining." John gritted his teeth. "I'll see about that." He angled the ship into a sharp dive, weaving through the asteroid field with expert precision. Massive rocks loomed on all sides, spinning lazily in the void. The ship's proximity alarms blared as John pushed the vessel to its limits, skimming dangerously close to the jagged surfaces. Behind them, the pursuing ships struggled to keep up. The asteroid belt was a treacherous maze, and only the most skilled pilots could navigate it without smashing into oblivion. But John knew these dangers all too well. He planned for this route, studied the trajectories of the asteroids, and calculated the risks. A missile streaked past the ship, narrowly missing their starboard side. "They're locking on," Julia warned, her fingers flying over her console as she tried to jam the enemy targeting systems. Noah, gripping the arms of his chair, scanned the ship's arsenal. They were heavily outgunned, but they had one advantage: agility. "Deploying countermeasures," he said, activating the ship's chaff and flare systems. Clouds of metallic debris and bright flares erupted behind them, confusing the missile's guidance systems. The first missile veered off course, slamming into an asteroid with a deafening explosion that sent debris flying in all directions. But the bank's ships were relentless, launching more missiles, and closing the distance with deadly intent. John's mind raced, searching for a way out. The belt's density was increasing, and the ship's hull creaked under the strain of sudden maneuvers. Then he saw a narrow tunnel carved through a massive asteroid, just wide enough for their ship. It was a risky move, but if they could make it through, it might just buy them enough time to escape. "Hang on!" John shouted, diving the ship toward the tunnel. The passage loomed ahead, dark and forbidding, with only the faintest sliver of light visible at the far end. John's hands were steady on the controls, his focus absolute as he guided the ship into the tunnel's maw. The walls of the tunnel rushed past, mere meters from the ship's wings. Inside, the ship's crew was silent, each of them holding their breath as John navigated the tight space with millimeter precision. The tunnel twisted and turned, forcing him to make split-second adjustments to avoid a catastrophic collision. Behind them, the pursuing ships hesitated. The tunnel was too narrow for most of them, and those that dared to follow were at a severe disadvantage. The first enemy ship clipped the tunnel's edge, spiraling out of control before smashing into the rock wall. Another was caught by the shockwave of a collapsing section, its hull crumpling like paper. But John's ship emerged from the other side, intact and free of immediate pursuit. For a moment, the crew allowed themselves a breath of relief. But the danger was far from over. The tunnel had bought them time, but the Galactic Bank's forces were still out there, and they were broadcasting the ship's location to every patrol in the sector. "We need to jump to hyperspace," Julia urged, already calculating the coordinates. "Now, before they swarm us." John nodded, bringing the ship into open space. The tunnel exit had led them into a sparsely populated region, just clear enough for a hyperspace jump. But as John prepared to initiate the jump, a massive ship appeared on their sensors, a Galactic Bank cruiser, heavily armed and directly in their path. "Cruiser ahead!" Noah warned, his hand hovering over the weapons console. "They're charging their main cannon." John's mind raced. A direct hit from that cannon would vaporize them. But retreat wasn't an option. The ship was already locked onto their trajectory. He had only one move left. "Prepare for a micro-jump," John said, his voice calm but firm. "We'll jump right past them." Julia's fingers flew as she recalculated the jump parameters. "Micro-jump ready," she confirmed, her voice filled with tension. "On my mark," John said, watching as the cruiser's cannon began to glow, the energy build-up visible even from this distance. The ship's engines roared as they prepared for the jump. 3, 2, 1, now! The ship lurched forward, the stars stretching into lines as they leaped into hyperspace for a fraction of a second. They re-emerged just behind the cruiser, its massive bulk now a receding shadow as they accelerated away. The enemy cannon fired, but it hit nothing but empty space. They were clear. The ship hurtled away from the battlefield, its engines straining to put as much distance as possible between them and the Galactic Bank's forces. John allowed himself a small smile as the stars began to blur, signaling the successful initiation of a full hyperspace jump. "We did it!" Julia breathed, slumping back in her chair with a mix of exhaustion and relief. Noah let out a long exhale, finally unclenching his fists. "Hell of a job, team." John glanced at the secured container where the vault's prize lay hidden. They had pulled off the impossible, robbing the most secure bank in the galaxy and living to tell the tale. But he knew their journey was far from over. They were marked now, fugitives with a prize that many would kill to possess. But for now, they had won. John leaned back in his seat, eyes on the stars ahead. The galaxy was vast, and they were about to disappear into it, leaving the Galactic Bank in their wake.